Hey guys, it's Miss Lovell here. Today we're going to be talking about recounting stories. Now, whenever we're recounting a story, we break it up into three different sections, which is the beginning, middle, and end. Let's get started. Okay guys, to begin our lesson, I'm going to bring us to an anchor chart. This anchor chart shows that recounting stories is just like a roller coaster. In the beginning of the roller coaster, or in the beginning of a fictional story, we need to be looking for the characters and the setting. In the story, the author will introduce the characters as well as where they are. So, whenever we're reading a fictional story, we need to ask ourselves some questions. Who are the characters and what is the setting? Once we find these two things, we know that we're in the beginning of our story. From there, we go up the roller coaster to the very, very top. This is where the middle happens of our story, and this is also where the problem arises in our story. So, whenever we're reading a story, we need to be asking ourselves, what is the problem in the story? What events led to this problem? When we find the problem in our story, we know that we've reached the middle of our story. Lastly, we go down to the bottom where we find the end. In the end of a fictional story, we find the solution. The solution is how the problem in the story is resolved. So, as a reader, we need to ask ourselves, how is the problem solved in the story? Now that we've got this visual in our head, let's go ahead and read a story and see if we can determine the beginning, middle, and end by looking for these things: the characters in the setting, the problem, and the solution. Okay, guys, we're going to read a fictional story, which is a folk tale from Korea. It's called The Ungrateful Tiger. Now, you may notice on the side of my page, I did some writing or typing in this case. As a reader, it's so important to annotate on your text. Annotate means to mark on your text. So, in this situation, I would like to do three different colors to indicate the beginning, which is green, the middle, which is blue, and the end, which is purple. Now, if you don't have access to three different colors, you could also use shapes to find these things. Now, normally you wouldn't have to write this to the side, but I just did this to remind us that in the beginning, we're looking for the characters in the setting. So, as I read, if I find any characters or if the setting is mentioned, I'm going to highlight that green. In the middle, I'm looking for the problem. So whenever I find the problem in my story, I'm going to highlight it blue. And lastly, whenever I find the solution in the story, I'm going to highlight it purple. So let's get started. A long time ago, high in the mountains, the people of a small village came together to decide what to do about the tigers wandering near their home. We have to do something. With all these tigers wandering around, we're too scared to go out of the village, said one man. Yes, we have to do something. Last week a tiger ate one of my legs, said another, pointing to his leg that was not there. Okay, so after reading this first paragraph, I already see some different things that are being mentioned that I need to highlight. So, first off, it mentions that they're high in the mountains and they live in a small village. That's the setting of my story. Also, it mentions different people talking, right? Those are the villagers. So let's keep reading. After much talking, the villagers decided the best thing to do was to dig deep holes to trap the tigers. Everyone helped, including the bigger children and the man whose leg was not there. They dug deep holes near all the tracks leading to the village. Okay, so in the second paragraph, I'm going to highlight villagers because those are some characters in my story. Also, in the beginning of the story, I'm noticing that they're facing a small problem. What is that problem? You're right, tigers are wandering near their home and they're too scared to do anything. So they decide to fix their problem by digging holes. Let's see if this problem gets bigger in the middle. A few days later, a young man came to visit his uncle and heard loud howling sounds as he walked along a track to the village. What's making all that noise? He asked. Whatever it is, it doesn't sound very happy. The young man followed the howling sounds until he saw a deep hole with a tiger in it. The tiger tried to jump out, and each time he fell back and howled. "Hello, Mr. Tiger," said the young man. "How did you get down there?" "I don't know," cried the tiger. "I was walking along in the forest, as tigers do, looking for something to eat, when suddenly I fell into this deep hole." The tiger pleaded with the young man to help him. "Please, please, help me get out of here. My wife and children will be worried about me. If you help me, I'll be very grateful." The young man was a very kind person. He found a large tree branch that had fallen on the ground and pushed and pulled it to the side of the deep hole. "Watch out, Mr. Tiger," yelled the young man as he pushed it down inside. Okay, so from this paragraph, we're introduced to two new characters. The first character is a young man, and the second character is a tiger. So because we're just now getting introduced to these two characters, I know that this is still the beginning section of my story. So let's see if we're going to continue on in the beginning or if we're going to transition to the middle of my story and find a problem that arises. The tiger sprang up in the branch out of the deep hole. "Ah, that's better," said the tiger, pleased to be free. The young man felt suddenly very nervous standing next to the large tiger and decided to leave. "I must be going now. Goodbye, Mr. Tiger," he said. "Not so fast," said the tiger. "I'm going to eat you." But, you said you'd be grateful if I helped you," stammered the young man. Uh-oh. Just from reading this fourth paragraph, I already know what the problem is. What do you think the problem is? You're right. The tiger wants to eat the man, even though he just saved his life. So we need to highlight that sentence in blue because that is the problem, and that lets me know that I'm in the middle of my story. So in this paragraph, I'm going to highlight the sentence, "Not so fast," said the tiger. "I'm going to eat you." Because that's telling me what the problem is. Let's see if this problem continues or if they find the solution and we move to the end of our story. "I am grateful," said the tiger, "but it was humans who dug the hole and trapped me, and since you're a human, I'm going to eat you." "That's not fair," cried the young man. "I'm a tiger, and that's what tigers do, eat people," growled the tiger. "I helped you, and now you're going to eat me just because I'm human," said the young man. "I think we should ask someone else to judge if that is fair or not." Okay, so from this paragraph, I'm not seeing my problem being resolved yet. So I know that this paragraph is still considered part of the middle. In this paragraph, we might see a potential solution to our problem, which is having other people judge whether or not it's fair. Let's continue reading and see if this resolves our problem. The tiger agreed, and they went to look for someone to act as a judge. They found an ox and told him the story. "I think it's fair for the tiger to eat you," said the ox. "Humans treat oxen very badly. We're made to work all day, and when you want, you kill us and eat us." The tiger moved closer to the young man, who quickly yelled, "Let's make it 2 out of 3." The tiger agreed, and they went to ask the biggest tree in the forest. "I think it's fair for the tiger to eat you. You humans chop us down whenever you want to and set fire to the forest and burn us." The tiger looked pleased and showed his big teeth as he smiled at the young man. The young man was so frightened his legs began to shake. He saw a hare hopping along. "Please, Mr. Hare, help judge if Mr. Tiger should eat me." The hare listened to the story and then said, "Before I can judge, I must see exactly what happened." They all went to the deep hole where the young man had rescued the tiger. "Now show me exactly where you were," the hare said to the tiger. Anxious to hurry up and eat the young man, the tiger jumped down into the hole. "Was this branch in the hole?" asked the hare. "No, it wasn't," answered the tiger. The young man and the hare pulled the branch out. "My judgment is that it's not fair for you to eat the human," said the hare. "Just because it was humans who dug the hole doesn't make it fair for you to eat him. You should have been grateful for his help." The hare hopped away, and the young man hurried off to the village, leaving the ungrateful tiger howling in the deep hole. Wow. So lots of things happened in this last paragraph. First off, we have three different judges. We have an oxen, a tree, and a hare. So the oxen and the tree both agreed that the tiger should be able to eat the human. Now that's not resolving our problem, but when the hare comes along or the rabbit comes along, he thinks that he should see a replay of what exactly happened. By doing this, the rabbit was tricking the tiger into getting back into the hole and not being able to get out, which ultimately saved the man. So that is the solution to my problem. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight this solution in my story. So the best part of where the solution starts to happen is whenever the rabbit or the hare asks the tiger to jump back into the hole. So I'm going to start right here. "Now show me exactly where you were," the hare said to the tiger. And this solution goes all the way to the very end of the story. So the tiger jumps in the hole, they remove the branch, and then the hare says that he doesn't think it's fair. So in the end of the story, the tiger is stuck in the hole, and the hare gets to go away and hops away, and the man gets to walk away from the tiger. Okay, so now that we have sectioned and highlighted our story, let's group the paragraphs from beginning, middle, and end. So first, I'm going to do the beginning section. What I like to do is I like to box in the section. So this is from paragraph 1 all the way to paragraph 4. This whole section is the beginning. So this first page and the beginning of the second page. Now the middle is whenever the tiger wants to eat the human. That's from paragraph 5 and 6. So this section of my story is the middle. Lastly, the end of our story is whenever they ask for judges and the rabbit saves the human by tricking the tiger into jumping back into the hole. We did such a great job on identifying the beginning, middle, and end of our story. So let's move on to our chart and fill out some important information. So now I have a chart that's pulled up for the beginning, middle, and end of our story. This chart is just like the charts you use in your Ready workbook. So whenever we fill out these charts, it's important for us to fill out just the most important information mentioned in these 3 sections of the story. What I like to do when filling out this chart is to go back to the text and look in each of the sections that we marked off. So first we're going to look at the beginning. So let's go back to our story. In the beginning of the story, we're looking at paragraph 1. In paragraph 1, it talks about how the villagers of a small town need to come up with a plan. In paragraph 2, it talks about how they decide to dig deep holes to trap the tigers. Now, paragraph 1 and 2, that's very important. We don't need to include all of these little details, but we need to include that the villagers decided to dig deep holes to trap the tigers. So let's go ahead back to our chart and let's write that in. We can say villagers decide to dig deep holes to trap wandering tigers. This is a great event that we need to incorporate in the beginning of our story. Now, is that all of the most important events that happen in the beginning? Let's go check. So now that I'm back at my story, I've already looked at paragraphs 1 and 2, so let's look at paragraph 3. In paragraph 3, it talks about how a young man comes into the village and he finds a tiger stuck in a hole. This is very important, as well as the tiger begging him to get out. So we need to include this in the beginning chart on our other page. So we need to say, a young man finds a tiger trapped in a hole. We also need to mention that the tiger begs the man to set him free. The tiger begs the man to set him free. These 3 events are so important in the beginning of the story, so we need to make sure we include that in our chart. Now that we've got the most important points from the beginning, let's work on the middle. In the middle of my story, I have paragraphs 4 and 5. In 4, the tiger gets out of the hole and he tells the human that he wants to eat him. And in paragraph 5, the human says that that's not fair and that they should ask different people to judge. So I'm going to include both of those events in my middle section chart. So I'm going to type, the tiger is set free and wants to eat the man. Along with that, in the middle of our story, we're going to mention that the man thinks that others should judge whether or not this is fair. These are 2 really important events in our story. So now that we've looked at those, let's look at the end paragraphs and see what is the most important points. In the end, we have these 2 last paragraphs. In these paragraphs, the tiger and the man ask an oxen, a tree, and a hare to judge whether it is fair. Also in this story, the hare tricks the tiger into getting back into the hole so he can't eat the human. Those are really important points that we need to mark down on our chart. So let's go back to our chart and let's fill that out. So we can say, they ask an oxen, tree, and hare to judge whether or not it is fair. We also want to include that the hare tricks the tiger into getting back into the hole. By mentioning these 2 important details, we see the solution to the end of our story. So even though the oxen and the tree said no, he should be able to eat you, the hare ends up tricking the tiger so he can't eat the human. Now that we've filled out this beginning, middle, and end chart, let's play a fun game where we sequence the events of our story. Okay, so this is a really fun sequencing game that I use with my class on Active Inspire. It does time you, but for this video, we're just going to do it together, and we're not going to worry about the timer. So we have to sequence the items to show the order of the events in the story. So first we have the man helps the tiger out of the hole, and the tiger wants to eat him. A hare tricks the tiger into getting back into the hole. The villagers dig deep holes to trap wandering tigers. The man asks other animals whether or not this idea is fair. The man walks away from the tiger into the village, and a man sees a tiger in the hole, and the tiger begs the man to set him free. So, I know from the beginning of my story that the first thing that happened is that the villagers decide to dig deep holes to trap the wandering tigers. So I'm going to put that in number 1, and it shows me that I got it correct, so I can move on to what happens next. Now, I know that the man helps the tiger out of the hole and he wants to eat him. That's in the middle, so I'm going to see if there's any more beginning events that happen. So this one right here, a man sees a tiger in the hole and the tiger begs the man to set him free. That also happens in the beginning. So I think this is the second event that happens in our story. Now, those are the two events that happen in the beginning. So now I need to look for the middle. I know that when the man helps the tiger out of the hole, the tiger wants to eat the man. That does happen in the middle. So I'm going to put that as number 3. So now I have left the hare tricks the tiger into getting back into the hole. The man asks other animals whether or not this idea is fair. Or the man walks away from the tiger into the village. So I know that before the hare tricks the tiger or before the man walks away, the man asks other animals to judge. So I'm going to put that as number 4. Now we're working on our last two events. So, does the hare trick the tiger into getting back into the hole first? Or does the man walk away from the tiger into the village? You're right, the hare tricks the tiger into getting into the hole, which allows the man to walk away from the tiger and into the village. I hope y'all enjoyed learning about recounting stories with me today. I'll see you next time.